During the first meeting of the subsidiary body on Article 80 and under the CBD Convention related to the indigenous people and local communities. As parties to the convention convened here in Panama, the CBD Women's Caucus underscores that gender justice is not a peripheral issue, but rather a cross-cutting priority essential to the effectiveness, equity, justice, and sustainability of the biodiversity action and policy. Our interventions today from our colleagues and speakers will bring together women from all over the world, from different backgrounds and also from different parts of the world, where they are going to share with us the key messages or the priorities of the CBD Women's Caucus for this meeting. And we will explore how the CBD Women's Caucus opinions or outcomes or reflections about several agenda items. Please join me to welcome my distinguished guests or speakers, starting first by Professor Elisa Marchi. Elisa is Professor of Practice at the College of Law, Indigenous People, Law and Policy Program, and Program Manager of the Indigenous Rights and Protected Areas Initiatives at the University of Arizona. Elisa will share her reflections and what is her reading regarding a relevant item. Please start by talking about the item that you are going to talk, then share with us the key messages on behalf of the CBD Women's Caucus. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Fatima. Thank you all of you that are here. So I am going to address item 4, which is the modus operandi. So we are now in a historical moment, in a historical week, because this is the first week of meeting of the subsidiary body in Article J that was established just last COP after a long advocacy of indigenous people and local communities to have a body that can really represent them, have their voice heard. This body is particularly important, we believe, as Women Caucus, for indigenous women and local communities, women and girls. As you know, they are those that really transmit, conserve, and develop the knowledge of their communities, that scientific, traditional, and technical knowledges. So this body is a particularly fundamental moment for them to really have their voice heard at international level and in the CBD, and to address our challenges concerning biodiversity. So it's very paramount that the modus operandi, which is the way that this body works in practice, will really reflect gender, but also, and here we coincide with IFB position that this body should be, and the candidates to participate in this body should be selected following indigenous people and local community self-determined processes. Why this is important? Because this would guarantee safe place for our indigenous women and girls to really share their knowledge without fear of retaliations. So no interference from any actors in this process is a paramount point for us, as well as the fact that these candidates should be selected within the 7 socio-cultural regions that has been established by the United Nations Forum of Indigenous Peoples, to really reflect the diversity and complexity of indigenous peoples. And this means that this will allow our indigenous women and girls from local communities and indigenous people to participate and have their knowledge system reflected in a very broad way, taking into account all this diversity, something that the 5 regions of the UN cannot do. The other paramount aspect is to guarantee for the nomination of the candidates from parties, and indigenous people, local communities, gender balance. And this is fundamental. And expertise. What do we mean for gender expertise? What we would like to see reflected in the AJ subsidiary body is the real expertise of our women and girls, meaning their leadership, the way they transmit their knowledge. So we want to see represented the women that are in the ground doing the work. So this is fundamental for us. It's fundamental also that this body will be fully financed by the state, so be part of the CBD budget, otherwise cannot operate, and also have enough fundings to support throughout capacity building or whatever kind of support the full participation of our indigenous women and women from local communities. Finally, the last point that we want to make and make strong is that the focal point, we really ask state not only to designate this focal point, but to support them, meaning to guarantee that they have enough knowledge on indigenous and local communities and on gender to really operate in an effective manner. So to conclude, we really think that this body should be led by self-determined processes, the 7 sociocultural regions, and gender balance, as we believe that, and also we should emphasize the respect for Target 22 and for the plan of action, gender plan of action. So these are other important points for us. So finally, we think that the participation of indigenous women and girls in this kind of setting is really fundamental to advance the objectives of the Convention on Biological Diversity. In particularly, we would like to see addressing existing data gaps for indigenous women and local communities, women and girls, and also strengthen the implementation and review of reporting of the convention. So I think I'm going to stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elisa. You highlighted the key points that the CBD Women's Caucus is calling for it, from ensuring the meaningful participation of the women and girls and also gender focal points to this new subsidiary body on Article 8J, to the capacity building, to ensuring also the financial resources. Thank you so much for sharing this this intervention on behalf of the CBD Women's Caucus. And now let me go to the next speaker, who is Shruti. Shruti Ajit. She is the project officer for the CBD Women's Caucus, working on the capacity building, and also she will be sharing regarding item 5 on the SBAJ new program of work. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatima, for that lovely introduction. Well, I will be particularly focusing on agenda item 5A and 5B, which is development of these guidelines around the legal policy framework for the implementation of Target 2, Target 3, and Target 1 and 14 of the framework, so around restoration, conservation, spatial planning, and environmental impact assessment. So first of all, I think it's echoing what Elisa said, is about being in this space is truly a historic moment in the making. Like the fact that this came from like hours and hours of negotiation back in Kali to have this subsidiary body recognized, and it's not just ours in Kali, but even before, to have like working groups on Article 8J and these kind of conversations, to have this subsidiary body recognized is truly monumental at this point. Over the last 2 days, I've had the privilege of having interactions with women being from the indigenous peoples and local communities, women and girls from those communities, to learn about so many wonderful but also the kind of challenges that they're facing. But it's also very interesting that some of the key things that these conversations highlighted was the fact that women play a very critical role in conservation, restoration of the biodiversity. And without them and recognizing their roles and rights, I don't think we are going to even get any of these targets that we are hoping to achieve by the end of 2030. So within these guidelines, we hope to have gender responsiveness embedded to kind of focus on the unique roles, contributions, and rights that women have. Looking at just like, for example, say restoration. If women are leading restoration processes, women from indigenous peoples and local communities, when they lead restoration, does restoration actually happen differently? And there's multiple evidences to say it does. Because when women are leading restoration processes, they are not just looking at restoring ecosystems, but they're also looking at aspects of food security. They are addressing things around health of the community. So I think when women are taking center stage, they are also addressing so many other things, which also links to the synergies that we keep talking about and we spoke about last week all across when Substa happened. So therefore, that's just one example. The example yesterday, I think, during another side event of how when women were included into like participatory mapping with spatial planning, how in Kenya, how when initially where there was a lot of resistance and when they were included, they realized their territories are far bigger because of the kind of access and use women have with the forest. So having these knowledge systems, these kind of very unique practices that women practice, and they are usually passed on from one generation of women to another, is something that is often gets left out in these spaces. And we keep saying, and it's not a repetitive thing when we say gender responsiveness needs to be embedded. It is a priority and critical part. So with those examples in mind, one of the things within the guidelines we wanted to do was to ensure that the guiding principle remains, and we hope that in the final document these guiding principles remain, because one of the guiding principles speaks about gender equality. Of course, we want to strengthen that language by saying that we need to ensure that these gender responsiveness is not just with recognition, but also respecting and protecting the rights of women, especially when it comes to land tenure, when it comes to governance systems. And we also want to add things like special measures that should be taken to identify, eliminate, prevent, and respond to all forms of gender-based violence, for enabling them to participate fully and actively in the processes of restoration, conservation, spatial planning. Another thing that we wanted to say is that we need, when environmental impact assessment happens, often we don't realize how much of that, and usually it happens for a particular development project that's supposed to happen, we never see how much of that impacts women. So we need gender differentiated impacts and and contribution in case of any such things happen, because we have enough data, but also not concrete ones for policy at a national level to say that you need to ensure women are not affected, because women are the ones who are the most affected when anything were to happen in those. So we are talking about gender differentiated data and impacts and contributions of women to be recorded in this. And the last thing that we want to do is, within the enabling condition, also we want to ensure that there is targeted support, capacity building, and direct funding for women-led initiatives, because they have been doing, and I think someone yesterday over the last couple of days said that if you give money to a man, he swindles it away with alcohol. But if you give money to a woman, she will know how to take care of it and reuse it to ensure that her community is taken care of. So I think we need to also talk about direct access funding to women-led initiative and women-led women from indigenous people and local communities to have these kind of support, because they are already doing it. It's just a matter of respecting, protecting, and recognizing these things. So that's all. Thank you.
This is really inspiring and fantastic, because when we share examples, they are really touchable and can reach people more. Thank you so much for providing these concrete examples, talking about restoration, moving to the data, moving to the direct access and capacity building. And we are sharing, as you are noticing, we are sharing the same components or the same task and for different items. And now, thank you so much, Shruti, for this. And we are going to have also questions from the audience, if there is anything for any question to our distinguished guests. And now, let's move to the next item with Berta, who is joining us from Salvador. Yes. I don't know what happened to this mic, but it is turning off sometime. We are apologizing for these technical issues. Berta will be sharing on behalf of the CBD Women's Caucus the reading of this item and also the key messages and what we want to address as women from all over the world in this meeting. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you, Fatima. For regard items 5C, this item consists of a document that explains the background of all previous decisions that led to agreement on the specific point. And therefore, we have to review the current glossary of terms adopted in decision 14 and 13 to understand and identify the basis for the mandatory review and update. The document contains explicit mandate to carry out the specific task, including relevant recommendations and proposals of possible approach for completing the task. In summary, is proposed 4 steps in concrete. The final section, thus the section establishes the mandate of the technical expert group with a composition of 30 members and 15 experts from indigenous people, a local community, and 10 from parties, and 5 from other relevant organizations. To address this proposal and make it gender responsive, at the Human Caucus, our community Human Caucus, we have conducted an highly participatory, inclusive, and equitably consultant and review process. Our position in this matter is as follows. Language matter, a glossary that fully integrates gender and human rights. Consideration is key to ensuring that definition under the Convention reflect equity, respect, and the interconnectedness and biological and cultural diversity. Thus, the review of voluntary glossary should follow the principle of the KMGBF, including in the section C, and allocate space for women and youth, as well as gender and human rights experts, including for submission and expert group. As the Women Caucus, we reiterate that the review and updating of the voluntary glossary is essential at its contribution to knowledge, understanding, and comprehension among the parties, indigenous people, and local communities in all the regions of the world, which facilitate the dialogue and consensus for the application and adoption of the CV88 and the national level. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Berta Medrano from Salvador, for sharing the reading and also the key asks from the CBD Women's Caucus. And now let's go to our final speaker, who is coming from Rwanda, Marie Salvatrice Musabyeyezo. And she will be sharing on item 6, provision of advice on traditional knowledge for the global report and on collective progress in the implementation of the GBF. Yeah.
Thank you, Fatima. Thank you for this. Moment to discuss on the provision of advice on traditional knowledge for the global report on collective progress in the implementation of the coming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. I can say that this is really a historical opportunity to bridge the global policy gap with local wisdom of women from indigenous people and the local community embedded in traditional knowledge, and to ensure that women from indigenous people and the local community are not just beneficiaries, but they are considered as protectors and decision makers in biodiversity conservation and sustainable use of natural resources. I am coming from a background of conservation, and women, as you know, all of you, have been playing a big role. Their knowledge in food security, in their traditional knowledge in medicinal plants, in seed preservation, in land management, but also in the overall ecosystem services in terms of water, providing food for the family, and also energy for cooking food. All those practices contribute a lot on biodiversity conservation. As Women Caucus, we think that those knowledge should be recognized not only in the reporting, but also in the implementation of the global coming biodiversity conservation framework. From that, with the Women Caucus, we suggest the following. Integrate the traditional knowledge should be recognized in the implementation of the coming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. Despite the critical role of traditional knowledge of women from indigenous people and the local community remain undervalued, insufficiently documented, as my colleagues have said, often threatened by environmental degradation, climate change, and unsustainable development practices. The erosion of this knowledge risks the loss of vital cultural and scientific insight essential for food security, ecosystem health, and sustainable management. So from that, Women Caucus suggested the following on item 6 in the first paragraph. we encouraged parties to go beyond the numbers. Most of the time, they consider gender balance, but gender balance, most of the time, they consider numbers of participation. We added the representation. When they are represented, they will present their views, and their views will be considered in the implementation, development of national strategies, implementation, and also reporting. And we, as Women Caucus, we said that if they don't include women and youth in the text, this will be not highlighted, and they will be left out. We thought that including women and youth was very important for us. Not only in the reporting, as I said, in the implementation, and also you report what you implemented. If you without involved in the action, then you can't report. We request also to add another new paragraph that we request that the Executive Secretary of CBD, and together with the ad hoc scientific and technical advisory group, to convene an informal dialogue with parties, indigenous people and the local community, including women and youth and other stakeholders, to collect their input on traditional knowledge, including best practices, challenges, gaps, and solutions, to ensure that those experiences and voices of women and youth are fully reflected in the global report. From that, this is because there are threats to the traditional knowledge from land ownership. It's a problem from all around the world that land ownership for women, it's an issue. This should be addressed. Deforestation is affected, especially women involved in subsistence agriculture. However, their traditional knowledge keep on improving soil production, which should be recognized. Mining also affected them, climate change, but also those pressures affect women. Proposed solution, integrated gender responsive, as others have said in the indicators. Support community-led initiative, especially focusing on traditional knowledge, and also exchange within communities, not just at high level, but also exchange within communities, because traditional knowledge take into account the context of cultural context, but also geographical context. We also encourage strengthening indigenous women and local communities' leadership. If they are not involved in the leadership, they are not a part of the decision making, it can't work, traditional knowledge will be left out. We encourage also finance traditional knowledge, which is a key for women so that they can be able to translate those traditional knowledge into the implementation and reporting. So we as Women Caucus, we stand for recognition of women's rights and not mere stakeholders. Respect the traditional knowledge as living heritage, not just as a resource to be mined. Restoration of the ecosystem and knowledge system that sustain our collective future. And to conclude, let us listen the voices of the women who have kept seed alive, preserved the forest, healed the communities, and also sustained the balance between human and nature. Thank you so much for listening to us.
Thank you so much, Marie Silvatrice. It's really, truly to hear from you. Thank you so much for sharing this and for sharing really very important points, which is we don't want to see like decisions as reports, because we already have gender plan of action, but we need implementation. And how we can do the implementation, we need resources. This is our call from the CBD Women's Caucus. We heard from Marie Silvatrice from Rwanda, Shruti Ajit from India, Elisa from Italy, and Berta from Salvador. And now let's give the floor to the audience. If you have any questions to our distinguished guests. Yes, we will have a question. Please, can you just name the speaker that you want to have the answer from? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for this for sharing these positions. I think that is absolutely necessary to jump to the implementation and to establish that all policies needs to be gender responsive policies. So my next question is, what do you think about the inclusion of the protection of indigenous peoples in voluntary isolation and this initial contact in the voluntary guidelines? Maybe Elisa could.
I think this is your specialty, Elisa. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I can answer as expert, but no on behalf of the Caucus. As Berta was saying, the Caucus is a very participatory space, so we don't have a position yet, but probably we will have soon. But as an expert, I think this is fundamental, and thank you for this question, because right now we are discussing the protection of indigenous people in voluntary isolation initial contact within the guidelines, so take into account their particularity and guarantee that some principle, like principle of precaution, no contact, precaution, and intangibility will be respected. This is a core issue also for women and girls of these indigenous communities, because they are those that are mostly impacted when the rights of indigenous people in voluntary isolation initial contact are not respected. During my work, I had the opportunity, the great pleasure actually, to meet some of these women that were in initial contact due to the fact that their land were be subjects of mega projects or other kind of pushing, and so they were living right now in the Amazon, in some city in the Amazon, losing totally their connection with their land, which for them mean losing their knowledge, losing the language, and exposing them to very gross kind of violence. So I think that is important that their priorities are taken into account in this space, that we can support them, and hopefully soon, if the subsidiary body will work in a participatory manner, to really have them participating, to share their knowledge that are fundamental, not only for them, but for, I think, for the future of the planet. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elisa. Any other questions? Yes, please. Can you? Yes, you can ask in Spanish, because we have Berta. She is Spanish. Yes, of course. Thank you so much. Over to you. Thank you so much. Just to remind me with your name, full name. Sharon. I will give the floor to Shruti from India. She's our project officer working on the community, building and capacity building. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon, for that lovely offer, and we do look forward to having more learning collectively about genders of all diversities, and that's also the intention, to have more inclusive space and one of the things that we hope to have is the midterm review of the gender plan of action, and there are like multiple objectives under which we are hoping as Women Caucus to make the submission of the various examples emerging across the world, and we would love to have you like submit so that we can collectively like say that these are so many examples of like varied ecosystems, varied contexts, varied diversities that are working on conservation and towards achieving the objectives that is outlined, or not just objectives, the targets and outlined at the KMGBF. So I think this is critical. I think we also need to have go back to our countries and engage with the parties to say that, hey, do we have a gender focal point? Who is the gender focal point? How can we engage more actively with the gender focal point? Sometimes we also seen that they are not prioritized to attend these spaces. So they are often don't have their capacities built enough to be able to also support. And this is where the expertise is so critical, right? Like, because we do have amazing women who are doing such amazing work on like ensuring that this inclusive language is included, but in the more administrative sphere, the expertise, like we've seen that some of the gender focal point are just appointed because they're women, but they are not the ones who have expertise. And they are also lost about how they can begin. And this is where I think we also have the gender and biodiversity champions within Women Caucus to have the gender focal point engage so that we then will be able to also connect them to the groups who are active in their regions or in their countries to say, hey, maybe you can build your capacities by having conversations with these groups and learn from what they are doing, see how collectively you can kind of build a collective position at a national level. So that's essentially, it'll be great, but we look forward to have you with us and also learn a lot from this. But thank you so much. Yes, absolutely. Look forward to it.
We look forward to have you with us and also to have your interventional as well and your key demands from the grassroots to the international level. And we are embracing all communities or all the individuals who are really advocates for gender responsive and who are really call to engage the women, girls, and also men. We have also men, Shruti, from different backgrounds. It's really something that we'll honor, and we will always learning from each other to get our voices heard. Any other question? Yes, please. Maybe we need the mic. Yes, just for it's broadcasting. We need. Thank you. We are apologizing for technical issue. Yes, we can hear. Yes. Yes, I will thank you so much for your question, and this is really a deep question that I will direct it to our project officer, Shruti, and maybe the other speakers can also add something. Thank you.
With regards to the guidelines, that's the intention. We don't want to have a homogeneous body. When we talk about violence, it should be of the diversity of violence. It could be emotional, it could be mental, it could be also, it's also regional specific. So we want to ensure that these diversities are captured within the language, which is what we are saying. We need to strengthen the language by ensuring that these diversities are captured. Of course, I know that parties are including the language of with respect to national circumstances. So I think then if that comes, it then comes down to and boils entirely down to each one of us then having to do this, not at this level, but actually going back and engaging at a national level, because each one of our countries will have their own laws, their own policies. If they don't, then we push for policies to address gender-based violence based on the context that each territories, wherever the national laws exist, does it address them? Does it not address them? If they don't, then you push for that. And one of the things that helps here to be in this space is to start those conversations with the delegations, to say, hey, we want to do that. How can we engage? How do we start? And, go back and then continue those conversations. And this is something that is a great space to have those conversations, start those things, and then continue pushing and advocating at a national level. And I think the global context is where we try to put some things in one bracket or whatever, but we also try to, I think when we look at negotiation, that's where the politics of words come into play, and how important it is to keep certain things as vague as possible to allow us to do these diversities, to bring in these diversities. So so then you understand why we keep a certain term to allow for these diversities, because then we can take those and go back to our governments and states and say, hey, this is the language, this is our interpretation, this is what they're saying. I think you should do it because you are a party to this convention. So I think it's not just at this level, but it's like at all levels that we need to start seeing how and what is happening from ground up, build those conversations and bring that to this space so that people know that there is evidence that shows certain patterns.
Thank you so much, Shruti. I think Berta would like to add something. Yeah, briefly, please. Thank you.
I speak Spanish, Rosa. Thank you. Pienso que este es un tema que tiene que ver, con una visión multinivel, ¿sí? Y también con reconocer el tema de las diferencias. Es decir, y la comprensión, que cada pueblo, cada grupo tiene en su respectiva región. Y por eso lo conecté con el tema, digamos, del glosario, una parte de lo que mencionó, porque si no comprendemos, esos diferentes problemas, desafíos, dificultades que cada uno de los grupos, pueblos indígenas o comunidades locales en su respectiva región tiene, y cómo, digamos, hacen la definición de cada uno, digamos, de esos desafíos, problemas, oportunidades, es difícil realmente conseguir un diálogo. Y desde este marco de la Convención Mundial Marco de Biodiversidad, que estamos buscando precisamente unificar todos estos problemas y estos desafíos para abordarlos, pero se debe de tomar en cuenta esa diferenciación, o sea, precisamente para esa adecuada comprensión, ponernos de acuerdo, inclusive entre las mismas partes, para que las partes mismas comiencen a comprender y adecuar en sus respectivos marcos, pero bajo los principios de, digamos, bajo los principios, o sea, de reconocimiento pleno y efectivo de los pueblos indígenas, las comunidades locales y en nuestro caso enfatizamos, ¿verdad?, a las mujeres, o sea, de hecho, y las niñas. Quería agregar esa parte nada más. Gracias.
Gracias, Berta, and thank you so much for providing your perspectives in this regard. Our press conference for today is coming to the end. Thank you to all of you, and thanks to our distinguished speakers. The CBD Women's Caucus will continue and always working for a call for direct, flexible, and right-based funding, inclusive participation, and meaningful participation, and gender-responsive, human rights-based approach, governance across all biodiversity processes. And for more information, please, you can find our key messages, everything's regarding these meetings and beyond, everything's regarding our participation in the CBD process and also other meetings in our websites under cbdwomenscaucus.com, and also we are very active on social media. You can take a look and follow and like and share our posts. We are sharing always our updates, and yes, together we can ensure that biodiversity action and policy, emphasizing this word action, truly reflects equity, rights, justice, and the leadership of women in all their diversity. Thank you to all you. Thank you.